Hello and welcome to tonight's Get in Tune. I'm Michael Gracia. Tonight I got a really exciting show, especially for you tabletop gamers out there. If you're into games like Dungeons and Dragons, we're gonna talk D&D tonight. I got a dungeon master coming on, and I just had a little chat with him before we came on. Very interesting guy, very interesting background. So I'm excited to bring him on. He's a musician, he's a podcaster, and a dungeon master. Let's bring on Thomas Lapierre.
Ooh.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I was looking forward to this ever since our mutual friend Sebastian mentioned you to me. So before we begin, though, I want people to find out how they can find your D&D podcast.
You can go to Indian.com/Medusa's Cascade. It should be on the bottom.
Scrolling across the bottom now.
You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. We're setting it up.
Yeah.
We're in the works to get some stuff on YouTube as well. So
awesome. So, and we're going to talk about this podcast, but before we get into it, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? I said you were a musician, a podcaster, and a dungeon master. Give us a little background on you before we get into D&D and podcasting and stuff.
Sure. I grew up in New England, New Hampshire. Went to school for audio engineering at Full Sail back when it was Full Sail Real World Education.
Was that the 90s?
That was mid 2000s when I went.
Okay, all right.
So 2006, 2007.
Okay.
They had just bought they were in the process of buying what eventually would be Full Sail University.
Yeah.
It was really cool. It was really hard. So ended up coming back. I've been playing guitar since 8th grade, and I ended up making a couple friends at a new job that I'd gotten. Started playing in a band. That band is still ongoing.
That's great.
And eventually, ironically, through the not strange, our own little sort of custom, me and my brother, whenever we go to see concerts or local shows, we usually go to Denny's afterward, and we got talking, and he suggested, after I was talking about a character I was thinking of in my head, of we should play D&D.
Okay.
I'm like, I had never played it. Ironically, my little brother, friggin' genius with it, and so he convinced me to play, and that's when I started playing D&D.
That's great. And I just want to say hi to a couple of people, Mike Wilkie and Tim Jones, regular viewers and good friends of the show, awesome cartoonists. Hello, guys. So you were telling me backstage that you didn't play as a kid. You've recently started, but your father was into D&D. Was there a reason that you didn't get into it? Did he try to introduce you, or just something you didn't feel interested in?
I was super into sports when I was a kid.
Okay.
Played football all the way through high school, basketball up until high school. Just always more sports oriented when I was younger.
Yeah.
And only recently have I gotten really into this. So.
Yeah, you were saying in the last 5 years or so, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. But your brother had played for a while. You just said
yeah, he's been playing since he was younger.
Okay.
He was my first DM.
He was your first DM. Because you DM now. Let's talk a little, because you were you said you played sports, and Dungeons and Dragons here is going to lead into your podcast as well, because you do your D&D podcast. So when you got into, or you grew up in sports, you weren't into it, but you were a bit of a comic fan, and you tried to like to write.
Oh hell yeah! I was definitely a comic book fan. I loved the X-Men. Like my dad had all the old X-Men. Like he even showed me his like D&D first edition. He still has the book that he bought.
Wow.
But like, I mean, like I knew about it. It just wasn't. It wasn't. For me, it wasn't a game. It was just they were like cool pictures of like superheroes and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I didn't really read any of the X-Men comics that I had when I was a kid, like younger.
Yeah.
But it was, or I didn't really necessarily understand the content. But still, it was more like like I loved Wolverine and I loved like basically the cartoon from the early '90s.
Yeah,
like, that
it was
generation.
A good cartoon.
Yes, it was a great cartoon. Made me love the X-Men. I used to have like the trading cards. I collected cards up until like maybe high school.
Yeah.
Magic the Gathering, Pokemon was really big. G.I. Joes, Transformers, Power Rangers.
Yeah.
I was super into that stuff. So yeah, it wasn't necessarily that it wasn't. I don't know. It just playing the game never really. It didn't click, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just never thought of D&D as like something that you do. I just thought it was like this is like really cool art and stories and stuff.
Yeah. So you mentioned you after a show or whatever, you went to Denny's. I don't remember if it was after a show or not. And you're sitting there, after a concert, and your brother said, "Let's play D&D." So how was it getting into it, creating your first character? Did you play a pre-made, or did you create your first?
I made my own.
Okay.
No idea what the fuck I was doing. Pardon me if I'm not allowed to.
I'll say this. I usually don't. I don't curse when I'm on the air. I'm never going to tell my guests not to. If that's part of your normal language, go for it.
Yeah. Well, I will curb that as much as possible. A couple might slip out. But I had no idea what I was doing. So I made. Like I would distribute stats without really having any context of what any of the, like strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know what any of those meant besides like what I knew of the actual definition of the word, what it was in context, in context. And it was fun. I got her to level 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did you play before you got up to level 13?
I think I came in and we were at level 5.
Okay.
So about a year and a half, I think.
Okay.
Weekly.
Right. I just want to go to the comments. Mike Belcher is watching. Mike is an amazing artist who was a guest a few weeks ago. How you doing, Mike? Thanks for tuning in. So you started. So when did you start DMing?
Little over a year ago.
Little over a year. Okay. and out of curiosity, why did you go from being a character to a DM?
Because it was the only way that I was going to get to play Dungeons and Dragons. I had to be the DM, then I'll be the DM. It gives me an excuse to see all of my friends at least every other week to BS.
Listen. I'll just share, because I know I've shared my story on here a couple of times about Dungeons and Dragons, but I'll just share my story so the audience, if you don't know, when I was a kid, I wanted to play. I didn't even know it was a game, to be honest. Before I wanted to play, there was the cartoon Dungeons and Dragons for me, and I thought it was great. And then going to the, when the show ended, it was like only a year or two the show lasted for. When I was in a bookstore, I saw a book for the game. It was a monster manual. And I bought it. I didn't realize it was a game. I didn't understand all this stat stuff. I literally was maybe 9 or 10 years old at the time. It wasn't. I was a kid. Some of these probably images I probably shouldn't have been looking at for monsters. I don't know. But I remember seeing the book and having to buy it. And I used to sit and draw pictures out of it. And I didn't play until early college, and it was less than a handful of times when a friend basically explained it to me. And we kind of did a little test game, but honestly, you're in college, you want to meet girls and not play D&D. So I kind of didn't. I kind of stopped. And it wasn't until the last few years where I started playing here and there. But for me, I love making comics, as you guys know. I love telling stories, and I thought the DM was more where I should be than being a player. And I decided to go to DMing, and I recently, and this is the weirdest thing for me. I recently, a friend of mine works in a library, and he runs D&D in the library, and he had to take some time off, and he asked me if I wanted to take his place for a couple of months, which I did 2 months as a DM for a library, which was amazing because I got paid to DM. And I'm like, I never thought something like that would happen. And working with and playing the game with the kids and seeing their imagination, it was really cool. One of the reasons I love it. But anyway, the show's not about me. I just wanted to give the audience, a little knowledge on why I'm into, why I like it, and my background with it. But let's get back to you. So you wanted to play because it was the only way. So with the group of friends, because you play with the group of guys at IN Con.
Yep.
Or just IN is the company, but they put on IN Con, which they did virtual last year, and I was a part of one of the panels. And if they do another con virtually, I hope to be part of it again. They're a great group of guys, and definitely want to do more stuff with them if I can. They're fantastic. So how did you get involved with IN that it became a Dungeons and Dragons game with them?
I mean, like, I met Hutch in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really get involved with IN until maybe 14 or 15.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there until when Timmy is still going, I've been doing conventions with them, and I mean, just trying to help out where I can. I put out one issue of Hail Odin through IN, and really, I just bugged all of them enough to the point where I was like, come on, I'll help you build the characters. Can we just play once? If you don't like it, we never have to play again. But I think all of you will like it. Just let's play. Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing either, so we're all gonna learn together. And that's pretty much what it was and what it has been.
Awesome. Now you mentioned a comic you did. You said Hail Odin.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about the comic? Because I mean, obviously, it sounds based on Norse mythology.
Yeah, the whole concept of Hail Odin, or where I wanted to go with it, was like the idea that the Norse creation myth was like they weren't gods, they were like from the future, or like it was basically like someone from the future. I had contrived some way that survivors from like Earth way in the future, that's like based on Norse mythology, I guess. I had a whole contrived thing about that. It was cool, but it was essentially like the creation myth, but from the point of view of like this super soldier from the future that landed in the north in like 300 or 400 BC or AC, AD. I don't even know what it is. BCE.
I don't know what they call it anymore.
We'll go with BCE, or no, okay. CE. That would be Common Era.
Yeah.
Okay. I never know. I can never remember.
What was I going to add? Because it sounds like an interesting concept. Is this comic still available? Does it still print on demand? Can we get this?
I don't know if they have it up on the website anymore. I do still have like the last 30 copies in print. I mean, I could send you one if you want.
I'd love to read it. I mean, I'm a big mythology fan. Growing up, that's one of the things, when I learned about you learn about Greek mythology, I think in like 6th grade, and you do a little other stuff, Egyptian and whatnot. But I got into that, and I always loved learning about mythology. That I've read so many different cultures, and I think I tend to always, like most people tend to go towards like Greek mythology, just because the stories, and I know um, you could see characters that we know in comics and other places based on them. So for me, I think I tend to lean more towards that. But if it's a myth, I'll read it. Myth, legends, folklore, doesn't matter to me. I love all those fairy tales. I mean, that's my idea of a good time, which also works very well into the world of D&D. And was that something like you were into too growing up? Was mythology, or just you had this idea?
Oh, very much. I've always liked mythology. Same with you with like the Greek and the Roman and like the Egyptians. I really like the Egyptians. I got into like Japanese folklore is really cool. And I don't know, it was just I got really, really into Vikings or into the Norse essentially.
Yeah.
And like it was just a very super interesting. It was just really different from everywhere else. But I mean, just in a, I don't even know how to describe it. Like it was really cool. So I just like dove into it and got really into the creation myth. And I was like, well, what if it's all metaphor?
It's great stuff. And the characters, I know most people, if you hear Norse mythology, you think of Thor or somebody, and all of a sudden you think Marvel Comics, but so much more than just anything you see in Marvel. Although I do like Marvel's interpretations visually in the films of Asgard and the costumes and things. I thought that was a very nice interpretation. But you go to the classic myth. Thor has a redheaded beard, and for those who don't know, anytime you're dealing with a mythological god or something like that, that's considered public domain. So anybody out there who wants to make comics, you can create a Thor comic or an Odin comic. You just can't use Marvel's version or another copywritten version. So just throwing that out there as a little tip, because people think that they can't do it because Marvel has Thor. Well, you can't copyright mythological characters.
Public domain is your friend.
Yes. I mean, I am such a supporter of public domain. Actually, a good friend of mine, Jay Piscopo, was on my Storytelling Saturday show a few weeks ago, which, by the way, you guys, it's on hiatus for another week or so, just because of my freelance schedule. But he's a big supporter of public domain. He pushes public domain. I use public domain. Sherlock Holmes is in public domain. If you want to do anything, Hercules meets Thor, you could do a story like that, because they're all, and then you could have King Arthur appear, and Robin Hood, and all these great characters. Hold on, we got a comment from YouTube here. The Night Traveler, pagans would have sued them into oblivion long ago. Night Traveler, I don't know who you are, but there's a very good chance I believe they would have done that. But yes, it is a good place, and these are great places, getting back to Dungeons and Dragons, to pull characters from and stories from. I'm going to share a story in a little bit when we get into, and maybe we should just move into it right now. When you're doing D&D and you're DMing, you're creating a story.
Yeah.
How do you go about creating your story? Do you pull from an adventure that's already pre-made and then give your own twist, or do you come up with everything on your own?
Since I'm still essentially learning, we started on Curse of Strahd, so It was a module, but after like maybe 3 or 4 sessions, I sort of gave it my own premise to begin with. It starts off with the group meeting this guy that has a tavern that just appears out of nowhere. That's looks like it's bigger on the inside, and he says, I need you to go do X, Y, and Z, and they end up going into Barovia. So we're doing Curse of Strahd, technically, I guess, but I mean, I don't know. Like, it's in Curse of Strahd, but it's a homebrew campaign. If that
I get that. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. For those who don't know, and I should have pulled them out. I don't know if I can reach them. My D&D books are down on a bottom shelf right now. But for those who never played, you can get the starter set. There's the essential guide, starter set, whatever it's called. You can even download off the website the basic rules. And the rules are more guidelines, so I don't even want to call them rules. They're just guidelines kind of follow on how to build your characters, how to use them. And not DM, but Dungeons and Dragons is a collaborative storytelling game. So someone works as a dungeon master, like Thomas here, and he kind of sets up the story, and then there's a player, and I could be playing, I don't know, some kind of druid, let's say, and the druid has certain attributes that I could use when he'll say, you could give me a setting. You don't do it now, but I'm just saying, you give me a setting. You're saying, I come across this. What do I want to do? You say, I tell you what I want to do. You tell me to roll. I pull out my 20-sided die here, roll it based on the numbers. The DM will then say, "Oh, you got your dice there." Yeah, yeah. I actually right here have my favorite D20. It's a little yellow one, but that's I keep it right in front of me all the time. But and then the DM will then say, based if how I succeeded, failed, do I have to roll something if I took damage, or do I have to roll to see if I can actually do the feat I want to do? So there's a lot of different things. So it's not just saying, hey, I want to be able to jump over this orc and take my sword and just like put it into the back of his neck, and get. I have to roll. There's outcomes there's chance involved. So it's not just saying this is what I want to do and you do it. Thomas's job as the dungeon master is to say you succeed or you fail, or just set you up on the adventure. And you could, and I'll tell you this, as a dungeon master myself, the players will never go as planned. Said, is that correct?
I never have a plan. So
it's oh, you don't even go in with a plan. Interesting.
I just know where they want to go, and I let them go, and I react to what they do, because there's 9 PCs, so
wow,
it's
that's a big game.
9 PCs, and like 85% of them are like of chaotic alignment, and they take that to heart. So it's like, I don't go in really with a huge plan, because
that was actually
just going to be crazy.
Yeah.
Because they never goes like you plan it, ever.
Yeah, and I was actually going to be like, because you obviously read the Curse of Strahd, and I've never read it. I've never used an official module when I play, in the sense of the games I play. I like to kind of create my own world. So I'll set something up and say, this is the settings. If I have 3 settings, this is the settings. This is what's in each setting. And these are the NPCs, or the types of NPCs that they'll meet within the settings. And this is how I want it to end. This should be the outcome. And I never push my people through any of the settings. I say, we start off in setting 1. They can go straight to setting 3, where the ending's supposed to be. All depends on the paths and things. But I always have a core story with an ending. It's just, how do I get them to that ending? And as I'm playing, if they're changing stuff that I can't get I can't get them out of, I have to figure out how to change that ending, to meet with what they're doing.
I don't even have an ending.
Okay.
And it's not that I'm not thinking about it and I'm not trying to prepare for it, but they all have such high learning curves, like learning and like role playing, especially like role playing has been like all of them are. I'll just admit they're all pretty overpowered.
Mhm.
It is what it is. They wanted
Yeah.
cool stuff. I gave them cool stuff. So either combat's a slog or they destroy it in one round. It's
Mhm.
one of the two. So
Yeah.
we've gone more of the social encounters and puzzles, and there are like boss fights. They haven't gotten to the boss of this thing yet, so they haven't fought Strahd.
Yeah.
They still haven't fought Strahd in the last year.
Wow. That's been going on a while for this story. And
Granted,
and how long is your sessions that you play?
anywhere between 3 and 6 hours sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah, we go hard. It's every 2 weeks, so it's like everyone's like super pumped for this, and we just yeah, we they're still like I said, it's in a module, but it's
Mm.
mostly homebrewed. So there's 3 other homebrew settings that
Mhm.
are going to be seen in the second half of the campaign when they finish with Strahd, because they know that they are in a demi-plane and that they can't leave until they kill Strahd.
Yeah.
So like they have to kill Strahd in order to get out, but I give them a deadline in game, so they're dangerously close to getting to that point where like they have to do it.
Yeah.
Um, but so it's I've been throwing in a lot of the different characters' backstories to keep them invested in like you have other things that you need to do here besides walk around Barovia and try and find stuff.
Yeah.
Let's go. And
Uh,
yeah, so it's been interesting and planning and having an ending. Like I have a spot where I hope that it goes, but
mhm.
hell if I know
Yeah.
if
Let me just share a comment up here. So it says the Night Traveler says I designed the campaign ahead of time, and often the PCs will jump ship at the first opportunity. Now I go into a session with a few seeds and some options as to where to lead them, and that's a great way of working. Mine is a little, and I don't know if that's my comic background and just wanting to have a really overall story. But I'm very flexible. I'm okay with changing things. It's not like I'm not one of those DMs where it's like you got to go my way. No, 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 no. I'm gonna. I just like when I worked with the kids. I did two stories with them, and one I based loosely on Greek mythology. Another one I based on just things that I loved. You know, and it was kind of like a D&D version of playing Castlevania. You know, that's kind of like that was like my goal. I said I want to go in. I want them to fight monsters. I set up like werewolves and traditional vampires and all these things for them because going into this they were a higher level. And I said, what and I talked to my friend, what haven't they fought? Also, I said I just want to play Castlevania as a D&D game, and that's what I did. And I sent them into what I called Belmont's Mansion, and everything was taking place really in Belmont's mansion, and so it was really the castle. But I found, especially working with that age group, and I'll do this again next time because it seemed to really work. I try to, before they get into battle, gear them up with the weapons that they will need to succeed. But then they don't even think of using them. I yeah, so it's like I've given you this. It's easy to kill this type of creature. Nope, I'm gonna go and just attack with my sword. But it's a supernatural character, and your sword doesn't have any effect on them. So it's. I tend to like to when I'm working with the kids, when I'm working with older people and playing with
Oh
them
yeah,
and my friends, it's that. And I'm trying to actually get a group of people who've never played before together so that I could, because I want to play, I just don't really have people to play with right now. Anyway, let's see. I got a hi from Marie Danielle, who's actually my cousin. Thank you for watching, and thanks for tuning in here. So yeah, Sorry, my next question was going to be, so you kind of go in very loose with these stories. Was that a decision up front, or like when you started, were you like, okay, this is the module, this is how it's going, and I'm trying to follow it, or were you like, okay, I got an idea after reading the module and said, screw it, I'm doing my own thing? How was it?
I go in loose really because, I mean, we did the module because I had never run a game before, so I wanted to do something that I could pick up, and it might not be, by the rules, but I could fumble my way through some sessions. And if I get interested, if it was fun, I would probably get obsessed with it, and I would probably want to do more of it, and would get better just because of the amount of times I would do it, or however long we were doing it. So it was maybe after 4, I think we got to after we got out of the death house, we really started doing more of the homebrew and just having the homebrew stuff be set in Barovia to Curse of Strahd, but everybody's going through all of their own stuff. Like, they all have super detailed backstories that I gave them deadlines to get to me because they kept changing it while we were playing. So it's like, all right, this is the cutoff. After today, whatever you have written down on this Google Doc, that's what you have. And then I get to fill in the blanks as needed.
Interesting. So, and you guys record your games. And is that what Medusa Cascade is, or is that something different?
Yeah, so that's exactly. Yep.
So Medusa Cascade, what made you want to record and post your games?
Oh, I wanted to listen back to them so that I could figure out, hear the things that I was doing wrong, doing right, and I do audio stuff, so it was like, why not just record them? Maybe we can make a podcast later on. If you guys, go longer than 3 or 4 sessions, and you guys like it and you want to do it, then we can make a podcast out of it, and we'll already have stuff that I can go through and edit.
So when you edit, so your games are 3 to 6 hours. How long is an episode of Medusa's Cascade that you edit down?
Usually I end up splitting the sessions into 2 parts, and unless it's the end of a greater arc, I will usually leave out like we'll end the session here at the end of whatever session, and the recap at the beginning. I actually have all the PCs, they'll do recaps in character. They'll record a recap of the last session from the point of view of their character, so it's been really interesting.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, it's been I totally lost my train of thought. I do this all the time when we play too.
It's okay.
I'll go off on a tangent and it will completely die. You
were talking about the characters, recording them from their point of view,
and just recording them in general. And it was, if you guys wanted to do it and you were having fun, we can record it, and I can just edit it. It's really just I could probably keep them all one session if I really wanted to. But we do everything through Anchor.
Okay.
And there's a file size limit. So usually they tend to be no longer than like 3 hours.
Yeah.
But usually I'm cutting down things. We had kept in some of the earlier episodes, we had kept some of our combat sequences, and like I said, 9 PCs plus bad guys. And at that point, I was trying to make it hard for them combat-wise, because I wanted them to learn combat so it would be easier later on, because they were just going to get more stuff to be able to do, and at least have the mechanics down. And I really wanted to know how the mechanics worked.
Yeah.
But after that, maybe after 3 or 4 episodes where it was like almost all combat, because the Death House is pretty much all combat, we started cutting down to like someone would listen through and actually write down what every character did, and we would write a narration, and we would just narrate with like some stuff over. So like a 3 or 4 hour battle turn into like a 20, but not even that, like maybe 4 or 5 minute narration sequence.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I was just checking something on my phone here, just because there may be. I sometimes get questions through texts, and sorry, no, that wasn't it. It was something. It was just an alert. But yeah, you were. So you edit it down, which is great. So Anchor, that's only audio. There's no video involved in it.
No, there's no video involved.
Okay. And are there illustrations that your character, you're like that go up with this work, or that you show off what these characters look like?
Yeah, we do have some character art done.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's going to be some artwork. We are going to put like the episodes up on YouTube, but with some character art and stuff like that, and just continue to add over time. We may end up doing video for the next campaign, but
okay.
I mean, it was really like not everybody was willing to have their face on camera.
No, I understand.
Which I'm totally fine with.
Yeah. Well, I was asking because right now, and I'll be honest. Sebastian has told me to watch this. I haven't had a chance to, but I really been wanting to go and listen, because one of the things I like to do when I'm working, while I'm freelancing, just sitting in my studio drawing, is I like to listen to stories. So I'll put on like Netflix or something that I've seen already, so I don't have to like get up and listen to, or I will put a podcast on, or just something but I like to listen to story. And there's a lot of great like D&D on YouTube, whether it's celebrity people playing, just a group of friends going down. I mean, you can, everyone mentions Critical Role. What?
There's lots of good ones.
Like there's tons.
Dimension 20 is super good. Brendan Lee Mulligan is all the things. I love Brendan Lee Mulligan. Yeah, no, there are lots of really good ones out there.
Yeah, and I'll just put them on, and they'll be like a 3-hour game, and I'm like, oh, I got 3 hours of a story to listen to. And then sometimes I'll be sketching, and I'll be like, oh, I want to draw their characters or something, because they just, I'm really getting into their stories and stuff. And again, that's one of the things I love about D&D. And have you guys thought? Now, I know some might fall into copyright, but have you thought about, since Imbion is this like media thing with comics and anime, have you guys thought about making a comic out of your story in some way without having?
Oh yeah, we're already talking about doing that.
Okay, all right. 100%. I would love to see it. Obviously, you're gonna have to get rid of.
We would just take out Strahd, and we don't have to use the Wizards of the Coast names.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, that's cool, because one of the things that I thought about when I was DMing with the kids was, these would make great comics. Yeah. And I'm like, I got 2 new stories. I mean, some of the stuff I'll have to change, because they, some of this, there was, I'll tell you this one thing that happened. There's this kid, and because I wanted to ask you for some good stories, and I'll give you an example of something. So there's this kid, and the story I did was loosely based on Greek mythology. So a lot of the characters they had to fight were characters from Greek myths, and they land on this island, and it's nighttime, and they're quiet because they just got out of a battle, but they see like a fire kind of flickering deep in, like, further into the woods. And I said, and they're like, what should we do? And this one's like, I'm going to go investigate. And I'm like, does anyone else want to go with it? No, we're going to stay here at the fire and try to rest and heal and stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay. So
split the party.
So the kid goes up and he well, first they have this, like, I forgot what they had. They had a bird, like a raven or something, that they sent to investigate. And the bird landed, and that's when they saw the fire was coming, like, from a cave. And when the raven wouldn't go closer, it was too scared. It would only sit on this branch. So that's when the guy said, I'm going to investigate, and left. And I said, okay, what do you want to do? You're at the cave now. and I'm like, you're hearing some noises going on. It's kind of like little high pitch type of sounds, a little screechy sounds. What are you gonna do? He has this he had this spell that he can, transform into different animals depending on the dice roll. And
Polymorph?
what?
Polymorph?
Yeah, he was a polymorph. I forgot the name. I'm sorry. And he rolled and he became a unicorn.
Yes.
And I said, okay, you're a unicorn. What do you want to do now? Do you want to enter the cave? Tell me what you want to do. He goes, I'm gonna neigh real loud.
Yes.
So he neighs real loud, and out flies 2 harpies.
Stab him with my unicorn horn.
Well, they were above him, and he was like, I'm like, okay, now what? And he didn't know what a harpy was, so I described a harpy to him with the talons and all this stuff. And his first words were, "Oh crap," but a different word for crap. And I'm like, well, he shouldn't say that at the age group I was working with, but he said it. And anyway, I said the harpies start noticing, see the unicorn, and they want its magic horn.
Of course they do.
And so I said, and right before the battle was supposed to happen, I said, that's where we have to end it for tonight.
Yes,
And then next week when we played, we started, and he got mad. He's like, I want to run away. I want to run away. Let's see. I'm gonna ask you stories real quick. But the Night Travelers has a comment here. I made an entire campaign based on a story I originally wanted to turn to comic. There's definitely a lot of compatibility across it. I completely agree. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the reasons I love it. I love comic storytelling. I'll be honest. I use my die in writing. I'll be like, okay, what should my character do? I don't know. Let's pull out the die, roll 11 and higher. He succeeds. 10 and below. Mm-hmm. He didn't succeed in this battle. And I'm like, okay. So it kind of helps me out. And then I'll be like, okay, what direction do I want to go next? If he failed, how does that help him? Mm-hmm. So I'll do things like that. Can you give me some stories that were like some super exciting moments in your game, whether you had to cut them off like at the end, like I did to the kid, or something fun?
Well, it's already out, so it's not like I'm spoiling anything.
Okay.
For the most part, dude, is the last one out yet? I can't remember if the last one's out yet. All right, I won't go as far. I'm just trying to think of where we're at. There's definitely been a couple of times where that's happened. Definitely. Which one was it? I'm trying to think. It's been a year's worth of sessions, and they're all so long. There have been a couple of times where it's been, we'll stop it right there. One is most recently, it hasn't come out on the podcast yet, but there was a member of someone's past showed up in Barovia.
Okay.
In the middle of just showed up out of nowhere while everyone was sleeping. And there were a couple of that 3 or 4 session arc where it was, and we'll end the game right there. Or we'll stop the session there. I just don't want to spoil anything for the podcast.
Well, I just looked out at your website. Well, and I'll share the screen so that people can see it. Share screen. Hold on. Cancel. Uh-oh. Hold on. What the heck? Oh. Give me a second. Open. I hope I don't have to do anything because I'm using Google Chrome, and I had to update the computer, so I got to give it permission. Mm-hmm. Let me see. All right, give me. You know what? I won't share it now, but you have up to March 27th on the website.
Yep.
which is episode. It says C1E18. I hedge my bets.
All right, cool.
So anything from there or below that you're good at stealing.
Yeah, we're a solid like 8+ months ahead of where the podcast is.
Okay.
So I think they just made it to level 6. They just got to level 8 like a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
So, what happened? I mean, there's been a couple of them. When the group gave up Irina for Strahd to Strahd, we ended it right after it happened with like no, like it happens, and then as soon as like they went off, like basically what happens is they're camping. They're taking the story is they want to take Irina, who is the daughter of this recently passed nobleman in the village of Barovia, to a safe place, either in Krezk or Valaki, which are the 2 other towns in the valley. Yeah. And so they did this. This is after they get out of the death house, and they leave town eventually after some shenanigans because reasons. And you can ask Sebastian about this particular episode. Yeah. Regardless, yeah, he's responsible for a lot of the shenanigans. So
sounds
it's pretty
like
good.
Him.
Yeah, no, it's 100% him. But they get just up past Castle Ravenloft before it gets dark, which is where Strahd is. Yeah. And he shows up at the very end at the very end of their long rest, where we were going to end that night. So everyone's thinking like, we're going to take a long rest. I'm just making them do like watches just so that we can get through the night and we can start over.
Yeah.
Strahd shows up in the middle of the 3rd watch and charms their Goliath paladin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't super realize this at the time, but none of them knew what charmed meant in the game. So they thought that their paladin, who likes to smite things, could attack them, which is not what the charm condition is. They just don't want to fight the dude that charmed them, which happened to be the big bad guy. Mm-hmm. So I charm him. They're all like, oh no, I don't want to fight. Like, they're having these serious talks about like, oh, I don't want to fight Galahad, or I don't, they're all like, no, we don't want to do this. And they initiate combat because he goes over to Irina and like puts his hand on her face, and Sebastian, actually his character Kyver, tries to slap the dude's hand off, and I think Wiakwa, the druid, wild shapes into a panther and attacks him. So because they were protecting Irina, they were the only ones that were doing. Everybody else was like, peeing in their pants. They were like, oh no, the big bad guy's here. And then as soon as I used one of his legendary actions, I could see in their faces, they heard the words legendary actions, and they were like, nope, don't want to deal with this, nope. And they literally said, hey, can we you can have her, you can take her, just take her, just go. We don't have any beef with you, man, just go. So they give up Irina, and then I'm just like, and that's where we're gonna end tonight. And they're like, why did you do that to us? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
There was another good one at the beginning of the Constable arc. I believe it is episode 16. They find out that the episode before that is another good one. They find out that the Journeyman, after they had like this 3-hour epic battle with all of these twig blights and vine blights and needle blights, like so many. There was a tree blight coming in. They get into the winery, and then they clear that out for like a couple of druids, and then the Medusa's Cascade, the tavern, shows up. It looks like it's been destroyed, and they all run over to it, and they go in and they find out that the Journeyman, who's their patron, has been taken by this dude. And I don't even tell them like all I literally say is I painted that scene for them. They run in, and then they talk to one of the NPCs, the halfling barkeep, and he just says that they took him. And I was like, and that's where we're gonna end tonight. And everyone's like, oh no! And we had been going for like 6 hours, and they're like, wow, we're gonna stop.
And you go every 2 weeks, so now they have 2 weeks of thinking, what happened? What can we do? What are we going to do?
And then the next week, we go through this whole thing. We had a guest player come on, Don, and he was awesome. He was hysterical. He was a half-orc warlock that had a pseudo dragon as a familiar, and they went to go and try and talk to the constable. And I basically just I had 2 maps set up, and I gave them the option of like, you can go talk to the constable and try and bargain your way to get the journeyman back, or you can go to where he's being kept, but it's going to be a dungeon crawl because you're going to have to go through his vaults. So they split the party up because there were 9 of them, and 10 of them technically because they had Don in there as well. So 5 went with one, 5 went with the other. They I think they were smart. They sent all the stealthy ones, the ones that didn't like have heavy armor and stuff like that. All the stealthy ones went to the vaults, and all the people that clanged went to talk to the constable. And I'm not gonna lie, I had no idea what I was going to say whatsoever as the constable. I just knew what his personality was going to be and what was going to annoy him.
Yeah.
Like what he was looking for. Didn't know what I was going to say or how I was going to convey. I just had an idea of why he did what he did, and this is why he feels he's right. And we're just whatever they say, I'm just gonna play off of, because like that's mostly what our games are. Is I'll just throw just enough out there, and they have developed their backstories and how they feel as characters enough where they sort of go.
Yeah.
And so they have this whole back and forth for like an hour and a half of like real time, but like there's definitely pauses and stops and stuff. So like maybe 15-20 minutes in game, and they're about to leave because the constable says, one of you guys has to stay if you want the journeyman. I want it even trade, it's collateral, so that I know that you're going to bring the journeyman back. And this essentially was the deal that they were making. They didn't want to do it. They started to leave, and then Don's character, Revan, turns back around and says, look, I'll stay. And he was just like, nope, we already had this discussion. You guys didn't want to do this, and now you want to do this now. He basically got up and said, new deal. I take the paladin, or whoever lives after I stick my guards on you and I fight you, I'm going to keep. So Galahad comes in, and he's like, I'm just going to do it. And everyone's losing their stuff over this. And he gets pulled into these big doors at the end of this long chamber that they're in. And again, this is out now. So the the journeyman starts off as a male character. And in this episode, I tell them without confirming it that the journeyman is now a woman that they don't recognize. And that's how I ended the session. Was I just took one of their guys after we had a really heated discussion, and then I brought back this character who is the journeyman but looks nothing like the journeyman. And then I was like, and that's where we're going to end tonight. And they're like, what the F is that? What do we even, like, what happened? Did we even get it? Like, you guys are gonna have to wait until the next session. They're like, no, you can't do that.
Let me because these are great. I really am gonna. I'll probably tell you this weekend when I'm in my studio working. This is when I'm probably gonna start listening to your podcast. But let me. How did you handle someone? I think you said his name was Don. He was just a guest for the day. Like how hard was it? Oh, 3 sessions. Okay, because What?
I say he did the whole constable arc, so he
Okay.
he got them into that, and he helped get them out of it. So
Because
it was.
I was going to say, what is it like bringing someone in who's in there for a short time for you as a DM, and then they have to leave? So you did a specific arc knowing that he was going to stay and try to clean it up within those 3 sessions.
Yeah, that's where we're pretty much hit
Okay.
it.
Okay. No, that's I find that interesting because, everyone handles DMing a certain way. Like I said, I'm one of those guys. I like to be a little more prepared. I'm able to go off on the fly and do stuff, but I like to come in with a solid concept and my list of NPC names and just have everything prepared. So I could look. That's just me. That's my personality. Be organized. And you said you're more on the fly, but what have you learned as a dungeon master in the way of storytelling or the way of interacting with you basically started as a new DM with a bunch of newbies, so you all kind of learned together. But what if there's any maybe advice or something that you want to give to new people thinking of DMing or whatever? I mean, like, what have you learned as a DM that helps you in the game, or that has changed from the beginning of the way you play to the way you play now?
I would definitely have to say that the players are the ones that tell the story, and I'm just a facilitator of it.
Okay.
I mean, like, I have a vested interest in seeing where this story goes, but like I said, I don't know where it's going to go because it's truly up. Like, I'm basically saying, here are a set of circumstances. You have these choices that you have to make. You guys,
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you what ones you need to go to. You guys need to choose, and then whatever they do, these consequences for whatever they're doing are X, Y, and Z, and they'll happen off on the side if they're not going to those things. They're still happening. Things are still going on in my head. It's one of those things where I don't have everything written down in a very precise manner. It's more just like madman crazy notes of stuff.
Yeah.
I just have a big document that it's hard to scroll through sometimes, but it's pretty much that.
And so you I mean, even though you're on the fly, you create like a list of stuff for you, so you know.
Oh yeah. I don't have like a list in front of me or whatnot, but like if I know that they're going to meet I will have the main NPCs fleshed out enough where I have a personality and I have some sort of stat block that I can work with, so that I kind of have, like, if I'm trying to persuade them, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That type of deal. But outside of that, I mean, one of the more beloved NPCs was a druid that I just made up on the fly, because they were fighting these evil druids, and there was this whole thing where I just made up this stoner druid guy that was I called Chico, and they all liked Chico, even though he was only there for like maybe 30 minutes. They end up murdering all of the druids, pouring them into like a kill box, and they just one round just took all of them out, including Chico. And then the next session they resurrect Chico.
Interesting. So let me no, I love it. Let me ask you this question. I've never DM'd for a group of your size before. I've usually done between 4 to 6 players. How is it DMing for such a large group? I mean, that's one of the reasons it takes such a long time. Your sessions go long, but do you find it difficult to keep things, in order, and who's doing what when? I mean, how, it is a large group. So how do you handle that?
In the beginning, it was hard, but I think it was because we were all trying to find a rhythm and trying to figure out our own characters and figure out what was happening, because everyone was still learning. So it was, for the first couple sessions, I had to remind them, like, you guys have agency. You can go and do things. Like, you don't have to ask me to do stuff. You
Yeah.
tell me what you want to do, and if there's a skill involved, then I will ask you to perform said skill check. Outside of that, go.
Yeah.
Like for the first couple of sessions, it was like, and what do you guys do? And sometimes nobody would say anything, so I'd be like, all right, we're going to go around the horn. And I would go to each individual person and say, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And after a couple sessions of that, it started getting to a point where they physically had ideas of what their characters wanted to do in whatever situation they were in. And from there, it was just them at that point figuring out the right times to have conversations and to learn when to let other people speak. Because there are definitely times where some of the players and all of the players at one point have, and I have been guilty of it too early on, was steamrolling a conversation. So it was just a matter of saying, I've never been confrontational with anybody, so it was just like, hey, like, we want to try and get other people involved as well. So if you're going to be upfront and talking, I think it should be your job and your responsibility to bring the people that aren't in, that may want to contribute to the conversation but don't feel like they can get a word in edgewise. You be the one to facilitate them to come in, so they can feel more confident and they can come in and they can shine too. And like, it really did help. And once everyone started being like, okay, I know where I am, and we sort of noticed everyone picked up that there were some players that weren't saying a lot. Granted, they worked that into their character, and they're like, they're being observant, and they're the watchers of the group. One of them is just like a crusty old man, so he doesn't say stuff half the time unless he really feels like he needs to say something. But they have started to come in as well, and it's been super, super cool, especially like within the last couple of months, where we've gotten players that really haven't only maybe will join in during combat and will have a couple of quips or jokes or something in character to sort of lighten the mood or to add on to whatever was happening. And now they're starting to get in where they're taking the lead in conversations and they're initiating things happening. And it's been a really cool sort of shift in a dynamic in the group where the other people are still as active, but you're starting to see where everyone's sort of figuring out where their stuff comes in. And I've also used heavy on smash cutting. So like, get a certain point in, a one-on-one conversation between two characters, wait for a point where it stops, and if there's a long enough pause, I'm going to go, okay, smash cut, and we're going to go over to you, and what are you guys doing, and follow them for a little while, and when it gets to a good segue point, all right, smash cut, we're going to go over to you guys over here, and then just sort of have it like, I've almost tried to set it up like either a comic or like a longer, like a long run series where it's just like smaller vignettes of where things are going, and we'll just go back and forth between 3 or 4, sometimes 5 different things happening depending on what they're doing. But eventually everyone comes back, and it comes back into a group thing, and we go off and do that, the larger group again. And everyone again will sort of figured out where they fit into what parts of the game that we're in. If that makes sense.
No, it does. It's an interesting way, because I first of all, like I said, I never worked with that large of a group, so I was interested to see how it's handled, and I think sounds like
I did. They were my first group. I didn't know any different. Until I started talking in DM groups and forums and Reddit and stuff, where I was like, oh yeah, I have 9 PCs in my game. And they're like, because I was like, I'm trying to figure out how I want to do this without this, and I would give context to what I'm talking about and say I have 9 PCs, and I would get so many DMs. Would be like, well, you need to drop like at least 3 players before you can really do. I'm like, no, because at that point we've been playing for like 6 months, and everyone showed up every other week. 9 people showing up every other week for 6-8 months, and it's been like that for the last little over a year. So I'm like, I didn't realize that 9 PCs was a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
I realize that now after going through all of this. and being like, wow, 6 is like. Sometimes I run a group of 4, and it's just like I feel like I have to do more work at this point with 4 people than I have to do with 9 people.
Mm.
Because everyone's doing other things, everyone's interacting with everybody else. Like, unless something really special or like story specific is happening to the entire group, most of the sessions are either combat or like stealthing and whatnot, but a lot of it's role playing, and a lot of it's between either an NPC, which is me, and one of the PCs, or multiple PCs.
Yeah.
So, like at this point, I don't talk a lot during the sessions unless I'm giving descriptions or, I'm adding in something to a character that maybe has gone off on their own and is contemplating certain things. This happened with a character recently, and I literally had like 3 sentences written down as what the thing was, and it was literally Feywild, skill check, time limit, and that's all I had. And they rolled high enough to perceive what was happening, and they went in, and I started my timer, and it was the craziest 22 minutes that I've ever seen, and he like made it by the skin of his teeth, and it was so crazy. And there was no combat; it was just role playing and skill checks, and it was just bonkers.
Wow.
But at this point, outside of that, it's really like everyone's talking with everybody else. Everyone's trying to figure out their own stuff now. I've given them enough to really ruminate on. I've made more things personal for them, so they're getting. I barely talk in sessions anymore.
No, that's fantastic. So you don't, because there are sessions where that I've sat in where some days I feel like it's like pulling teeth to it, and it's not like they're not into the story. They're just, I don't know, and this has specifically happened when I work with the kids, where it's like they could be a little shy that day or whatever. But when I'm working with, new people, some are nervous to speak up, so, and that, like, once you get into the game and once they get comfortable, I'm like you. I don't do a lot of talking. I do the descriptions, I do the checks, I do things like that with them. But in the beginning, when you're starting game, was that an issue for you when starting with them? Like, they were too shy to talk, or
some of them were too shy, and some of them most definitely were not, and would talk. And some grew up in houses where you just talked over people.
Yeah.
So it was just, which I know I have plenty of people. That's my family, and I have taught myself to not do that because it just gets really loud. But
yeah,
there was definitely a learning curve. But like I said, we had the conversations where it was just like, it was, instead of me trying to encourage one of the players to start talking more, I felt like it was better to encourage one of the players that was really into it and was doing a lot of the talking at the time. Like, why don't you start bringing other people into this? Like, you have a really good grasp on your character. Help them find their characters. Interact with them, and they'll be able to have fun. I mean, like, I felt like they were having fun anyway, but I feel they'll be able to get into it more if they want to. If they have that door, at least you're opening the door for them to come in and have a chance to say and affect the story and the conversation.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I agree. It's a look. I mean, you and I both know it's fun whether you're a player or a DM. I mean, to me, this might be my all-time favorite game. It's just, you get to hang out with friends. You get to, just. I mean, what's better than hanging out with friends and just kind of playing with your imagination?
Yeah, it's the best, man.
Yeah, but you do all this virtually. Everyone's all over the place. Not everyone lives in the same state, let alone the same town.
Not even the same time zone.
Oh, you're playing with people in different time zones too? I didn't know that.
Yeah, we got Hutch is out in California.
Oh, I didn't realize. Wow.
Yeah, so Hutch calls in early. He spends a Saturday evening with us.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, and you guys play Every Saturday, well, not every 2 Saturdays. What time does your game start Eastern? Because that's the time frame I'm on.
We usually will get together around 9 o'clock, and the game will start somewhere between 9:30 and 10, and we'll go anywhere between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m.
Oh yeah, I'll never play with you guys. I'm too old for that now. I want to start at like 9-10 a.m. and play the whole day.
I would do it. I would do that.
I'm not. You know, it's what I don't even know what time it is right now. What time is it? It's not even 10 o'clock, and I'm exhausted, right? But you know, I don't know if I could do a game like that, but it sounds fun. I mean, I gotta say, I am so looking forward to starting to listen to your pod. So the Night Traveler just said, I feel old just hearing that. Night Traveler, I don't know if I know you personally, but I do a lot during the day. I'm just going to let you know this right now. I don't sleep much. I'm up by like 4:30, 5 o'clock every morning. And I start my day between 6:30 or whatever. So for me, my wind down time is like 10 p.m., 11 p.m., you know, and I won't fall asleep till like midnight, but then I'm up again by like 4. So, you know, I don't sleep much.
We have a couple players that take naps before they play.
Yeah, I would have to be that guy and drink a giant pot of coffee. He goes, he says, I don't know him, but Tom, you know him, who Night Traveler is. But yeah, so that's me. I don't, unfortunately, I even though I go to sleep what would be considered late around midnight, I'm still up by between 4 and 5 every day. That's just my body. But anyway, I wanted to, because I'm gonna wrap up. I know I just sidetracked with what I was saying. No, your podcast sounds super fun. I have been wanting to listen to it since Sebastian told me about it. Just there's so many other things I tend to do that I haven't had a chance to start. But you got 18 episodes up, and you said that's like you're already 6 to 8 months ahead.
Oh yeah.
So you know, doing the math, that's at least another 12 to 16 episodes. You know, not 12 to 16. You do it twice a month, right?
Do it twice a month, but you're going to get two podcast episodes out of one session most of the time.
So that was about probably, I don't know if my math is right.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah. So I got a lot to catch up on, but I'm not going to miss, you know, anything while you guys are still playing.
Oh, no, we haven't even gotten out of Barovia yet. Totally good.
Sorry. But yeah, no, this sounds great. I love that you basically created a podcast asking them if you can record it just so you can listen and to yourself more and find out what you're doing right and wrong and how you can improve as a dungeon master. I think that was it's like with sports, when you watch yourself play, how can you improve? It was like a great mentality to start it, and it turned into some, you know, luckily for all of you, it turned into something fun that you all love. You have all a great passion for. I love that it's every 2 weeks, because you know, when you end on something good, like you told me about, you really make them think what's going to happen. And it creates so much more fun, I think, for the players to sit for the week or 2 weeks. What am I going to do? What's going to happen next? What is he going to throw at us? What if he does this? If we do this, this could happen, you know? And it's like, so it's just a great way. And you have a great time frame. I think you have a great way of playing. I might even try to get a little more freer in the way I got to break away. The last thing I wrote, I had a 2-paragraph summary of the story. I had, because it dealt with a myth, so I had the myth that the people knew, and then the real story that I knew. Yeah, so I had all this stuff. I literally had, you know, you go into this bedroom, and in the bedroom there's a bed, there's a bookcase, there's this. On each shelf of the bookcase is this, and this. You know, I like really went into detail because I didn't know what, you know, you never know what people are going to ask you, so I wanted to be prepared. And I had this giant, like, 20-page PDF I put together. So it was like I'd be in Adobe Acrobat, and they'd be like, okay, you're going into the room, and I had a little list that I wrote down. The room is on page 4. Boom, click onto page 4, so I knew exactly where I was. And I had a list of monsters that would be in this room that they would fight, like the whatever they were fighting. So it was just the way I handled that, and it was like that was a lot of work, a lot of work. And listening to you and listening to how funny, I'm definitely gonna think about a lot of the stuff that you said, and maybe try to steal your DM method a little bit, because it only helps.
Yeah. One of my friends once told me, good DMs steal other people's ideas and make them their own instead. So like a lot of the stuff you hear, I didn't come up with that idea. I wasn't the originator of that idea, but it sounded cool and we made it our own. So that's really all you need to worry about.
Yeah. So before I go, is there anything you want to mention or talk about that we didn't talk about? Anything you want to promote?
Just go take a listen to the podcast, and there are going to be more campaigns. So this one isn't the only one. There are several other campaigns that tie into this one. We're doing it multiverse because we like to make things complicated. So outside of that, go check out the podcast and play D&D. It's because it's fun.
I just put the link in all the to the podcast in all the comments there. Everyone, please go check it out. I do plan on. I'm not lying. I will. I'm hoping this weekend I have the schedule too. But in the next week or so, it is going to become part of my regular playlist to listen. I love listening to Dungeons and Dragons, like I said, and I love playing it more. But when I can't play, I love listening. It helps the imagination. And as a DM, I'm always paying a little bit more attention to the DMs to find out how they're handling stuff. So I'd like to listen to someone who I like people who do things differently than me, so I could listen and see what they're doing. So, do you mind hanging out backstage for a few moments?
Sure.
Awesome. So I just want to thank you for coming on. I really did enjoy this. I would love to have you back on, maybe with a few of your players, and we can maybe even do a 1 hour mock game or something, and have a little
social encounter.
Yeah, just something a little fun, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll bring on a couple of people who never played before too, and we'll do something fun. Let's plan something for a couple of months down the road. And I really think that sounds like fun. I'd love to have you back. If you just want to come back on at one point, promote this again, talk about some cool stuff going on in the game. If you have anything, you're doing a comic, whatever, just let me know. I'm happy to bring you back on. I really had a lot of fun chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you. I had a lot of fun too.
Awesome. Thanks again. I'm gonna drop you backstage. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I really did enjoy tonight. I had a lot of fun talking to everyone. Well, not everyone. Talking to Thomas. I'm sorry, but I hope everyone enjoyed tonight. Is what I meant to say. I just want to remind you guys. Number one. Go to his website, inbeyond.com/Medusa's Cascade. You can listen to the first 18 podcasts there. Number two, if you've never played D&D, get a group of friends and play. It's just start it. You're going to love it. And by the way, if you're not into the fantasy world of Dungeons and Dragons, you like sci-fi, they have Star Wars role-playing. You can find superhero role-playing. You can find anything. D&D is just the most popular. Also, this Saturday, as a reminder, my Storytelling Saturday will not be happening. I'm hoping to come back next Saturday, but I've been busy with a lot of work, so that stream is kind of taking a hold for a little bit. This Thursday, I'm actually going to be back on Incredicon, or the Incredit Chat, the Incredicon HV channel on Facebook. Which and I believe it's on YouTube as well as Incredicon HV. On the Incredit Chat, which Mike Lopez and I started back in March of 2020, and around June or so, I kind of left to do Get in Tune. But it's the 1 year anniversary of Incredit Chat, and I will be back as a guest on that show. So I'm looking forward to that. And next Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. right here on this channel, I'm going to have the Fugitive Poem guys return. If you saw that one, it was Christian DiMatteo and James Lyons, both fantastic guys. We had our stream, I think, went over 2 hours because they're friends of mine I haven't talked to in a couple of years, really. So it was great catching up, and we sidetracked a lot. But if you want, go back and try to find that Fugitive Poems. They do. James is a fantastic artist. Christian's an amazing writer. Together, wow, the stuff they're putting out, it's I don't even know how to describe it. You just got to check out their work. It's definitely it's not for kids. I will say that it's definitely not a kid-friendly stories, but they are just beautifully illustrated and fun stories. So you guys, I hope you tune in this Thursday in Criticon HV and on next Tuesday for the Fugitive Poems, where I hear they might be announcing maybe a contest. We'll find out. All right. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope you enjoyed tonight, and make sure to play D&D. Bye, guys.